everyone. My name's Ellie Wu, and I'm a member of the Board of Advisors with Women in Cloud. I am thrilled to invite you to the Cloud Job Session today, where we'll touch on the future of work and put those findings into action at the Recruitment Lounge. Next slide. All of the effort making this look as easy as possible, almost like a duck kicking its feet. Thank you also to our amazing sponsors and to Google Cloud for sponsoring this session in partnership with Lions and Tigers. So when we think about just getting right into it, there's no one else I'd love to have us kick us off than Jennifer Didier. When we think about her 10+ years in the private sector with many roles related to the IT field, Jennifer started her entrepreneurial journey with directors training. And as the president of this global company, she builds programs to meet the IT and professional development demands of the market. So let's welcome Jennifer to give our opening remarks for today.
CIOs are consistently listing staffing as a top priority. A tight labor market and a skills gap is challenging their ability to build IT teams. IT leaders found 65% say a lack of talent holds back their organizations. So there's a very real talent gap. 93% of executives say it's preventing them from transforming fast enough. One of the skills gaps in today's IT market is the lack of business acumen, deep knowledge of the business, industry, or functional area. So IT staff must learn a second language, the language of business. So despite proof that increased training leads to greater transformation, success, almost half of training budgets are expected to be flat. So IT organizations are shifting from technology order takers to strategic business partners. They're changing from configuring devices and troubleshooting to solving real business problems using technology. And this is calling for new types of talent with vastly expanded skill sets. Half of IT departments are reporting that they cannot find talent with the required skills or hire fast enough. The other half can't afford to retrain their existing teams. So the skills that are needed today first one is business acumen. So a deep knowledge of the business and the functional area. Technical skills, design, configure, program, deploy, and manage. Soft skills like critical thinking, problem solving, leadership, and negotiation. And also technology expertise like cloud, security, data analytics, and IoT skills. So IT businesses are also looking at a training strategy by rotating talent, IT to business and business to IT. So in order for them to learn the second language, the language of business, this is a low-cost option that they're using. But other things that companies are doing today is increasing soft skills training within their IT staff, requiring technical certifications within IT, sending employees to events to learn more about new technologies, creating formal business programs and training programs to build key skills, and also rewarding employees who achieve certifications. So today, cloud is cited as the #1 skills gap. We need to build talent with cloud expertise. Cloud is so critical to any company operating at today's speed of business. Yet orchestrating solutions across private, public, and hybrid clouds while ensuring security and compliance stretches beyond its traditional scope. Cloud app development is an area where companies are willing to hire new talent versus retraining existing workforce, reinforcing the importance of remaining competitive. Organizations that are more successful in their business transformation initiatives recognize the competitive advantage of continuous learning and investing more in training. So research by IDC found that the United States, who's the leader of cloud computing, spent over $124 billion on cloud computing in 2019. By 2025, spending on cloud computing worldwide is set to exceed $832 billion. Simply Hired reports that cloud developers earn an average of $118,000 a year. Cloud architects do even better with a median salary of $125,000 and some salaries as high as $173,000 per year. These numbers speak volumes to the importance of cloud skilling and certification. Now more than ever, it has become essential to gain cloud skills and certifications. These skills and certifications will open doors that allow individuals to reshape their careers and better their lives. So in cloud, there are many job roles. Some are more technical than others. Men seem to naturally focus on finding the problem and solving it, but women think differently. We like to think about things in a more complex way. And that's why I think that women really stand out when it comes to such important roles in the cloud as unit testing, defect correction, written technical documentation, continuous delivery, and support work. Also, the cloud has made it possible for remote work. So this is more attractive for women who require flexibility. So the opportunities for women in the cloud space are endless. So I would encourage you to build your skills and certifications in cloud computing. The opportunities are endless, and we need to fill the skills gap. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Ellie.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I love hearing about how the technology piece is now in tandem and partnership with the human elements of what's needed in the business. So hello again, everyone. In addition to being on the board of advisors, I am the Senior Director of Customer Experience Transformation at SAP Concur. And throughout my career, I found myself as the only in many rooms, the only woman, only person of color. And so I love this session because accessibility and visibility are critical to creating the workforce that we can be proud of. And I'm excited for us to harness the power of the Women in Cloud Network to create the next generation of global talent and leadership in our industry. So what to expect when we're going through the rest of the session today? We have a lot here for you. Make sure you get engaged and cheer each other on, connect with one another on social, and make sure you share with the hashtags shown here below. Next slide. Oops, can you go back one, Blake? Thank you. As I mentioned, connection is going to be huge. And so if you haven't already taken a look at this, we have set it up so that way you can get warm introductions to cloud leaders, decision makers, and influencers. So if you haven't checked that out, go take a look and see if there's somebody that you'd like to be able to get a warm introduction to. And if you haven't gotten your goodies, check those out as well. All right, so what's happening next? We're going to kick things off with a power talk with Lion and Tigers founder, Bria Starmer. And then we'll move into a power panel led by a 20-year tech veteran, Dan, filled with industry leaders to give you an inside look on what they see with the future of cloud jobs. Then we'll round things off with a few words from our sponsor, bring Jennifer back for some closing remarks before we head into the networking lounge, where you'll have access to over 100 cloud jobs across 40 companies, coaches to give you insights on resume preparation, and opportunities to meet with recruiters. So without further ado, let's get excited for the power talk. Bria Starmer is a mompreneur with 3 kids under 6. She's also been recently named as GeekWire's Geek of the Week, and she founded Lions and Tigers, which is a marketing, operations, and strategy consultancy to empower professionals and enable clients through hybrid engagements so that there can be more flexibility in the future of work. So let's welcome Bria.
Thank you, Ellie. So nice to see everyone. I am coming out of maternity leave for this conversation today because we're asking a question that's on so many minds, especially here in the cloud jobs conversation today. And that is, what if work worked for all of us? Because sometimes it doesn't. And some of us have felt that way, perhaps in our workplaces too. You know, there has been times as underrepresented communities, we have felt and seen actions that have made us feel excluded. I know that I've seen or felt at times like someone is saying to me, I can't come in, or you're not like us, or you're not a culture fit, you aren't credible, I don't want to accommodate your needs. And what I hear in those moments, what I feel in those moments is that I'm not worthy. Like I'm being excluded from a community I want to be a part of. And for me, I faced my very own first professional low about 5 years ago. And I was so lucky because I caught it on film. You'll have to picture this with me. Picture that I'm standing in a public restroom. I am taking a bathroom selfie of myself here. And imagine I'm wearing this black dress, lace down to my knees. I have on flats. I'm carrying my best briefcase. And I've got this coat and a big scarf. And I'm doing my very best not pregnant gal impression. But the reality was I was covering up a big old belly, and I was about to go into a job interview. And I had taken this bathroom selfie to send to my husband to try to garner some confidence going into this job interview because I had just been laid off from a startup, 7 months pregnant. And I needed this job because I didn't have health benefits for my kid and my delivery that was about to come. And I sat across from a gentleman who interviewed me, and he told me his hiring process takes on average about 4 months. And in that moment, in that picture, I became a statistic. And I'm not alone. We've heard all day, all morning about some of the statistics that are hitting our women in our workforce. Many of you have seen the jobs report from just in December, where Americans lost 140,000 jobs. All of them were women. And the majority of them were women of color. We have terms now like a she session. What the hell is that? I don't want that. I don't want to hear that again. I don't even know what that is. I don't like it. No. What we know is that we're being set back a decade or more in our progress. And it's caused me to step back and ask these questions about our workplaces, about what we've been taught. You know, who built this? Who was it built for? What was it built to do? And if we're to face a true reality here, is that our tech workforce was built for a very specific kind of worker. He has no family obligations. You know, I'm a mother to 3. I'm on maternity leave. I've got an 8-week-old baby. I was up twice last night feeding her. I can't do 7 a.m. breakfast meetings. He's able to travel for work whenever he needs and go and see opportunities that I can't go and pursue, especially with COVID, but it's not a risk we're willing to take. He's extrinsically motivated. He's profit driven. He's white. And this has created a power dynamic in our workplaces, people who have jobs, access, privilege, and those of us that want it or need it. And so when I see statistics like what came out of Accenture and Girls Who Code, who found that half of young women drop out of tech jobs by the age of 35, it does not surprise me. It is not a coincidence. Many of us are caretakers. And the primary reason cited in that study is non-inclusive company culture. And do you know what I hear in that answer? I hear, you aren't worthy, and I won't accommodate you. And so it's possible that we're at a breaking point, but what I think we're at is at a tipping point. And if we're to look at the incredible trends that 2020 has brought to us and what 2021 suggests, there are 5 things that suggest to me that this tipping point is really coming for all of us. The first trend is, of course, women leading the market in record numbers. We're seeing this, we're hearing this all day today. I had a friend, Carrie, say to me, she's a published author, a thought leader on interior design. She had to drop out of the workforce so that she could care for her 2 young kids. And she said to me, Bria, I need you to keep working because I can't. And it stunned me. And so this childcare crisis that we're all facing is hitting women exponentially harder. The second trend that is long overdue is following the reckoning, the social justice reckoning we had in 2020, that is now calling brands to the mat. What are we all doing around the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And there's now spend, there are line items and there are initiatives across organizations across the world focused on inclusive hiring, on inclusive talent, on equity and inclusion in our workplaces. And this is a trend that's really encouraging. The third trend, as a result of 1 and 2, is that now brands and organizations are having to have responsibility over the mental health and wellness of their workers. Certainly, my mom and my grandma would never have had workplace health discussions like we're having today. The fourth trend is a term coined by Microsoft called tech intensity. And it's a term that relates to an organization's rate of technology adoption, along with its ability to build its own digital capability. And so I think of it as human potential and tech potential equals capacity. Better tech, better workers, more capacity. And the last trend, the fifth trend that really, revs me up is the freelancer revolution underway. And we see micro entrepreneurs, freelancers, solo entrepreneurs, gig workers, whatever you want to call them. They're raising in epic numbers, so much so that by 2027, it's predicted that more than half of Americans will be working in a freelance capacity, more than half of our workforce. And so these 5 trends mean that the power dynamic is shifting. And the great truth is that organizations still need good, talented, productive people to get the work done. And if women and underrepresented populations are unavailable in this traditional workforce as we've seen it today, we have to create new paths. We have to innovate new ways. And so my challenge to all of the decision makers that are in the room today is to think of this not as accommodation, but instead to think of it as a strategic advantage. Okay, so do you want to know what I did after the bathroom selfie? I didn't get that job, and it probably was for the best. I don't think we were probably a culture fit. I was able to go and I found a few part-time consulting projects. I self-funded my own maternity leave because we didn't have a social safety net here in Washington at that time. And I freelance consulted for a few years when my kids were really young and really needed me to have that kind of flexibility. I wanted to work just a little bit less than 40 hours and I couldn't find those jobs. And so after that, I realized that there was a hole in the market for highly skilled workers like me to come in and contribute. And so in 2020, my firm, Lions and Tigers, when American unemployment reached 15%, we were able to broker hundreds of part-time projects for workers across the country. And in the last 2 years, we've only been open for 2 years, we've been able to give more than $8 million of economic opportunity to this community, and they earned it. And so you might know Lions and Tigers, you're probably thinking about that name. It's a courage brand. And we bring highly skilled, talented workers into tech and enterprise spaces for these flexible and fractional engagements because it's one of the most inclusive ways of working. And we're on this mission to make the working world a more empathetic and authentic place for everyone. And so we're growing at a pretty good clip as a result of that. And so my mission today is not to encourage everyone to go freelance. That's not the right thing for everybody. But instead, it's to encourage this idea of access. And it's a word that we're hearing over and over and over today. And I'm so excited that we might have 100 job placements in our recruitment lounge amongst this community today. It's amazing. And so my call is to decision makers those of us among us who have access and power and privilege, to think about how we use that. And my encouragement is that you think about a two-pronged approach. First, you got to love the one you're with. You got to make sure that these employees are cared for through, of course, these equity and inclusion programs, through flexible work policies. Those are the things that will keep women in the workforce. The second is to consider an inclusive, flexible worker strategy, because that's the way that the world is going, and you need both. And really, what an opportunity we have. And we've talked so much about the power of women, and we know that if we harness that power, that we have the opportunity to add $5.87 trillion to our global stock market in the next 10 years. And if we think about, if we forecast out what this could look like in 10 years from now, it's this power dynamic shifts from profit-driven to people-driven. We heard from Jennifer talking about skilling, and certainly I agree, because I think that the future looks like skills as currency. You start to see it on LinkedIn already. At the bottom of your profile, you're seeing now endorsements for skills. And what if that got switched to the top of your profile, where our relationships with our skills, the mastery that we bring, is more important necessarily than the brands that we're associated with? And you see this skilling and training become so much more accessible. So you've got, Udemy and lynda.com and LinkedIn Learning, so many platforms dedicated to quick and specific kinds of training that people can take so that they become portable. They become the players. And I was really encouraged. There's a very recent study that just came out of Harvard Business School and Boston Consulting Group, where they interviewed 700 enterprise leaders. And one of the things that I pulled out of that study was that more than 3/4 of those leaders forecasted that their workforce would be more fluid, that they would be shifting between multiple employees and freelancers up and down at a higher frequency. So leaders are catching on to this swift talent trend too. And so my message to you is to choose your own beautiful path, because there is no one right way to do this. And so how do we get there? That bathroom selfie was the start of the confidence journey that I had to go on, where I had to realize my worth. And I had to adopt the mantra, and I hope that you all do today as well, that organizations should feel lucky to have us. For 10 hours a week or 40 hours a week, the amount that we can accomplish in that time is powerful. And so there's 2 steps to doing that, to realizing that worth. And the first is that we need to stand strong and true with what we need in our lives, the deal, the kind of constraints that we have, what we value to put us in our highest and best use and give service, and honor that by communicating it to the folks across the table from us. And if they don't agree, then they're not your people. And then second, we need to join into a community like Women in Cloud, and asking in a giving community, because we shift that power from he to we. And I will leave you with one last thought. It was a quote that I heard from the beautiful Amanda Gorman, who was a stunning poet at last week's presidential inauguration. And part of her poem, of course, applies to democracy, but it also applies to the future of work. And what she said is that while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. And I believe that this community can collectively make work work for all of us. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Bria. I was clutching my pearls and I was watching the chat, and I know so many people were having the same reaction. I think of you in that bathroom taking that selfie, and no joke, my thought was like, that must be what Tom Brady felt like when he was a 6th round draft pick, and you're just like he is. So I love seeing people do well by doing good. You didn't just solve the problem for yourself, but you've created a whole new path and avenue for so many others. So thank you so much for doing that and for sharing your story. I just continue to be inspired by you. Thank you, Bria.
Thanks, Ellie.
All right, so take a breath and get ready for our power panel. We've got a fantastic group coming up. I'm going to pass it over to our 20-year tech vet, Dan Langell. And so Dan will go ahead and introduce the panel. And just a quick note, even outside of work, Dan actually volunteers as a hockey and Special Olympics coach, instilling values of sportsmanship and team play. So not only is he looking at cloud jobs, but he's also looking to the future and what kind of folks we have in our communities. So Dan, with that, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Ellie and Bria. Wow, that's a tough act to follow. That was incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. And so, pleasure here for me today to moderate the Cloud Jobs Power Panel. And I'm joined today by a very impressive lineup. Eddie Bader, who's the VP of Operations at Aegis Innovators, and then Dawn Marie Elder, who's the COO of Scipio, and Eve Stacy, who's Vice President Market for Microsoft, the US Partner Group at Microsoft, and then Ashley Suchek, who's the account manager for Randstad Technologies. And we are going to spend approximately the next 30 to 40 minutes going through a Q&A amongst the panel on an array of topics related to cloud jobs. And so I think you'll find it to be a very, worthwhile and valuable 40 minutes. So thank you everybody for joining the panel. Let's start with an opening round robin, and maybe we'll go alphabetically with this. And so I'm curious because cloud jobs can mean many different things and many different things to me.
Cloud jobs mean more than just going from a traditional computer on-prem business model of monthly charge versus capital investment. It's a new way of doing business that has opened up opportunities. I saw recently that there's over $330 billion expected to be done in 2022 within this sector. And the importance of identifying where we can go with the opportunities is going to be increasingly important to take a software developer into the cloud and have the opportunities to really take this new environment, especially with the pandemic and how that focused for businesses, the importance of having the capabilities of working from home and working in this new dynamic. It's more critical than ever.
Wonderful. Dawn Marie.
So I initially thought of a pilot because those were the original cloud jobs. But today I think that cloud jobs are really anybody that's working in an environment where you're supporting or leveraging technology for the product set that you sell. And whether you are directly having your hands or head in the cloud, or you're supporting somebody with those initiatives, those are cloud jobs because they could be the accounting function or the marketing function as well as the sales function.
Interesting. Eddie, your perspective.
Yeah, I think Ashley and Dawn Marie really nailed it, but I'll add to it my take on it. I look at it, cloud jobs as access and opportunity. You don't necessarily need to live next to your employer in that city. You can, this idea of being in the cloud, being able to be remote, you can be anywhere. You can be, and I think that's really important when we talk about having to relocate, the ability to relocate and things of that nature. So I think that cloud work and specifically remote work brings a great deal of access and opportunities for those who may not have had it in the past.
And Eve.
It feels like it's been said. I guess what I would say is, the what of cloud jobs has been described. The benefit of cloud jobs is operating in a high change environment and really us to the future. And I think, 50% of the economy has made this shift, but there's another 50% to go. As I think Ashley said, the pandemic accelerated a lot of this remote work for so many people, but it's really opened the door for people to see just how much they can get done and more efficiently. And so I think that the pace will only continue to accelerate. So from a career perspective, it's a great opportunity area.
Yeah, I like that. Those are great perspectives. And so as a panel, would you agree with sort of a summary statement that a cloud job is a job that you can do anywhere and a cloud job is a job that can be anything. It's virtually limitless. I mean, that's what I've seen, at least. Would you agree with that?
That sounds pretty broad. Anything, anywhere.
I mean, from the point of view that, I mean, I've worked myself for companies as far afield as Australia and you know, in the cloud world. And, you know, a cloud job doesn't have to be just coding. It doesn't have to be just one thing or another. I think it was Don Marie, or maybe who said it can be accounting, it can be sales, it can be marketing, it can be social media brand manager, it can be a data scientist.
I think working in the cloud and for the cloud are two different pieces that really are important and useful to understand when you're looking for the opportunity, what's going to be the best fit for you. We work in the cloud now from home, but if you want to help support that, I know many businesses are looking for individuals to help because their business continuity was affected with this big shift. And so there are gaps that can be filled with new talent.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ashley, because you don't want to confuse somebody's work function with what the priority of their organization is, because what is cloud is a whole different conversation in terms of how different companies are bringing their solutions or offerings to the marketplace.
Perfect. And so let's go to Eve for this next question. And Eve, what are you seeing from business decision makers and how are they leaning in on cloud roles?
I think that so my background was at Microsoft, and then I left and went to Concur, where Ellie is now at SAP Concur. We were acquired by SAP, and then I worked for a high growth software company in Canada in employee engagement software, and now have come back to Microsoft. So I've had a kind of round circle. When I left Microsoft in 2013, we talked about business decision makers and considered the consumerization of IT, where people were buying their own technology with phones and bringing it into their workplace. And I think that now the world has moved so far beyond that IT decision makers are often just serving business decision makers around technology now. And that for one who is selling to or serving these people as customers, you need to have a holistic group of buyers in a company that are supporting the idea of buying technology that's going to be transformational because of how much it will take to actually make that happen, and also understand who the blockers are. And so I think those business decision makers can be a mix of people who will be big advocates and be people who will benefit from the change. And they can also be people who are threatened by the change, and understanding that realm of business decision makers and what their relationships are like with the IT community, either supportive and collaborative or adversarial, is critical to really understand the landscape.
Great.
I agree with the comment that she made about people being intimidated by it, because I think we see a lot of folks that, you know, haven't necessarily been given the tools or focus on developing their own skills around how to adapt. You know, I've worked from home since 1997. Most people haven't, but I've seen in the last 6 months, you can kind of figure out who's done this for a long time and who doesn't by how they show up. And you guys have all heard some of my stories. I won't necessarily repeat those either. But how people, you know, show up, you know, is your business casual, maybe too casual? I'll leave it at that. But I think that tells you a little bit about where people are coming from, and organizations now needing to pave the way with good policies and procedures internally so that your cloud life isn't your whole life and you never get to leave the computer and you're always on and expected to be working at 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. and all the things that Bria talked about. It was a blur before, but now it's even more of a blur than it was. Drawing those lines around your day and your work or your night.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. And I guess it begs the question then, how does working in the cloud or on the cloud, as the case may be, which for the past year really has meant working remotely, how does that mitigate against disruptors such as this pandemic?
Well, think about back in like 80s and 90s. How would you have done your job if you didn't have a computer and Wi-Fi? Like what would this world look like if the pandemic had hit 20, 30 years ago? We wouldn't have the option to be keeping our kids home from school and doing school from home, right? Unless you mailed them a book and some notepaper and something else. So we've been fortunate that technology's allowed us these capabilities and freedoms.
And yet, I would even say that
Not for all.
not for all, right? So there's an assumption that we all have access, but that's not true for everybody. So this opportunity to work remotely, this opportunity to just make this easy transition to go online, that doesn't exist for everybody. And I think that's something that as an employer, you need to be mindful of, and you should have programs in place, because if you don't, you're actually excluding potentially a good portion of your candidates and population, right? So I think it's easy for us to say that things would be different, and they are different for sure. I totally agree with Dawn Marie, but they're not different for everybody. And I think we have to be mindful of that.
I can share just real quickly on that. There was a candidate that was going into a third round interview for a architect level position that it was assumed that there was access to Wi-Fi for some of not only the presentation portion, but the coding section. The candidate was hired, and it was later found that he was on an unsecured Wi-Fi network because he had gone to a local Wi-Fi spot, and he lost his job for that. And so it is not necessarily working for everyone, and it is something that we need business decision makers to take a look at and make sure that we have options for those individuals as well.
Interesting. Yeah, good point. Eddie, let's go to you for this next question, because it's, I guess, sort of a companion to the current topic. What do you see are the best practices and the greatest challenges of working remotely?
Well, I think we just talked about one of them, the assumption of access. I think, again, for employers, I think you have to be very mindful when you have candidates. I think it would be great to establish a program that says, hey, look, we have things in place that if you don't have access, we will provide you access. I think those are things to be considered. We have programs for all types of situations, and I think that we should consider that as well. And I believe when you start thinking about that, you become more inclusive as well, right? And that's a huge piece. As a candidate, I think you need to be open about your situation. So Ashley's example was great. If they could have, if that individual could have had a open dialogue and felt comfortable to have that open dialogue with their prospective employer and say, look, I don't have access. I'm going to be in Starbucks on an unsecure network doing this at work. Can we have that conversation, right? And a lot of this is just being authentic and having as an individual, as a candidate, as an employer, having authentic conversations to say, this is where we are, this is who I am, and being able to work through that. I think that's really important. Those are some of the challenges. I think, Dawn Marie hit on some great things as well. Maintaining professionalism. We've kind of, and I'll be the first to admit it, and I'll be candid. We were on a little preparation call for this panel discussion, and I was not on video, but I had a hat on, a baseball cap on, and Dawn Marie was talking about, I think, we've gotten a little too casual, people wearing baseball caps, and I'm like, yep, that was me right there. So and now you see today I'm without the baseball cap. I think maintaining professionalism, there's some things that you have to remember. You may be at home, but you got to think like you're in the office. So get up, get ready as if you're going to office. Your home office is now your work office, right? So you got to make that mentally, it puts you in a different mindset, I think. So that's really important. Get your mind ready to go and really get your head in it. And I think the other thing Dawn Marie talked about was burnout and health. The statistics show that working from home and working remotely, we tend to put in many more hours. And I can tell you from experience, my meetings run back to back with no breaks in between. Now, in a normal environment, I'd probably be traveling a little bit. I'd have breaks in between. I think best practices there, schedule some break time in between meetings and don't do it back to back. I think what happens is if you're in meetings all day and you don't tend to not get things done. So you have to work a few hours later just to actually make progress on your actual tasks and things like that. So that stretches an 8-hour day into a 10 to 12-hour day. And if you don't get out of the house, you end up like this, no sun, right? So you need to think about that kind of stuff too. So I think health is important here. And we tend to sit. Right now I have a desk, I'm standing up because I can't sit all day. It just drives me nuts. But, you know, a lot of these best practices are something that you think, oh, that goes without saying, but it doesn't. So as an employer, you need to be mindful of that and thinking about your employees, because I guarantee you that when you think about them, you will reap the benefits. When you take a little time to be mindful and considerate, people feel that. People understand, like, you care about them. So I think setting some ground rules and setting some expectations that are realistic and help encouraging them to do these best things that you will get more from those candidates. I think it's great.
I think, Eddie, when you talk about, you know, the empathy of understanding people in their circumstances to really connect with them, for me, I've started this job mid-pandemic. So I've never met my manager. I've never met my team of 75 people. I've never met my peers. I've only met the partners that I know from my prior life. And so being able to be authentic and also get to know people and know them holistically, you know, what are their kids' names? What are they struggling with at home? What's happening with the people in their lives that have COVID? And making enough time, even though the business is moving quickly, to have those connections. And then also team building, which is another dimension, because people are so siloed. To make the work flow well and also to have a sense of cohesion in team is another thing that I think you need to, you know, invest extra energy around to make it work remotely.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And you'd appreciate this, Eve, perhaps.
Sorry, if you don't do what Eve just said, you're really foregoing the importance of building a culture or keeping a culture within your organization. And I bet you there'll be a whole lot of articles in, you know, Wall Street Journal and Harvard Business Review and all the rest of them 6 more months from now addressing that topic, because people are really overlooking those things that she covered.
Yeah, and one thing I found with the dramatic increase in, you know, I guess, video calls is that everybody's, unless they have a background turned on, you get to see a little glimpse into, you know, the person's personal life. And actually, I found to a degree that the rapport is enhanced, because you can start the call with a conversation about, you know, that great piece of art in the background, or the significance of that piece of memorabilia on the shelf.
Or the 5-year-old running in with a snack, which happened on the that I was.
I'm not sure if you heard a moment ago, I had someone tiptoe through that hit the baby gate, and that was the drastic mom eye there for a second. So it happens.
Yeah, I gave everybody at my house a text. Do not walk in and out of the kitchen door behind me, because there's not a blurred background today until after 6 p.m. So
I guarantee you there's a 15-month-old on the other side of this door that's got noodles in her hair and looks adorable. I just can't look at her right now, but those are some of the benefits of being home too, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it real. So
It does. It humanizes people. And now you know who has dogs, and you know what casual means to some people and not others. I would just give everybody a little piece of advice: don't wear your bathrobe on camera, and don't have your unmade bed in back of you. Because that's not the best. And those have really happened many times. But yeah, any other setup is fine.
Cool. Well, I think it was Ellie in her opening remarks talked about the impact or the value or importance of upskilling. And so maybe start with Ashley on this one. Can you talk about the importance of skilling and upskilling to get into a cloud role, or if you're in a cloud role, to advance your career or to stay relevant later in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I know reskilling, you can be learning new things and kind of expanding your reach, but upskilling really is stepping outside of your current knowledge set and realizing that there is a different direction or path that you want to go. I think it's important, especially right now when you look at the pandemic and what that's done to our workforce. There are tremendous needs, and there's got to be some self-discipline to take the opportunity to develop your skills, utilize the resources out there. There was a fantastic blog that was put out by Microsoft that really opened up what LinkedIn has done with all of their free and complimentary courses and navigates pathways towards career success, many of which are still complimentary through the end of a couple months out from now. I know Randstad itself on our career page, I put in this morning just cloud to see what was available, and there was over 1,600 jobs here in the US. Take a look at those and see what you're missing, and then look for free resources. There are certifications you'll have to pay for, a lot of which though Microsoft I know right now has programs in place for individuals, but find out what is needed. Take the time when you have it now to invest in yourself, so that way when we start to rebuild and things open up and there are opportunities now, you're already one step ahead instead of waiting for someone else to take the opportunity to grow those pieces. It really starts with yourself and being disciplined enough to move forward, to really care about your own development and see that success kind of pay forward. I'm going to be in the lounge later. I have a lot of resources that I pulled together to share, but I think it's important that we don't wait for someone else to tap us on the shoulder to say what's needed, and to really always be investing in our own skills to move us forward to the next position that we're most interested in.
And if I could just tag on that real quick, as an employer, I think it's really important to look at your hiring practices and your job descriptions, because language can be exclusive at times. And you really need to look at how you're writing your job descriptions, because some people look at that and automatically self-select them out of being a candidate for that position. So I always think it's a good practice to go through that and think about who you're excluding. So just throw that out there.
I've never been one, super focused on training programs, but I've had the great privilege in the time that I've returned to Microsoft over the last few months to learn from Brené Brown. I don't know how many of you on the call have heard of her, but she's got a new book out called Dare to Lead. And it's really about empathy and vulnerability and bringing those things into the workplace in an authentic way, and how to learn how to have, really tough conversations and rumble on things that are difficult, that particularly, to Eddie's earlier points about working remotely, become skills and a place where common language can really help, because of how easy it is to misunderstand nuance in a virtual environment. I think someone in the chat was talking about some of the essential work from home kind of things that you need to know to avoid those nuanced missed cues. But Brené Brown is a really interesting person for a lot of business place softer skills that I would encourage people to check out if you've not done so already.
Nice. Cool. So,
yeah, Eddie, one of the things that we did recently at my company, and I'm anxious to see how this works because we just finished it, is we had everyone go through and rewrite their own job descriptions. And as a leadership team, we're reviewing those and trying to get a feel for, is there a disconnect between the intention and what we wanted them to do and what we think they're doing versus what they want to do and what they think that they are doing.
That's a great idea, Dawn Marie.
Yeah, I don't really have any more information on it than that, but we're getting ready to redo our compensation plan. So we thought it would be a time to, rather than measuring them against MBOs that had been created, some time ago, let's do a check into the here and now. So I can offer a part 2 later and maybe give some feedback on how that went.
Be fun to hear about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
So let's go back to a round robin question for the next one, because I'm curious, given that this is a multi-generational event, what do you see as the challenges and the opportunities of a multi-generational cloud work environment? Let's start with you this time, Eve.
I love that topic. We're going to be a 5-generation workforce in the next couple of years, and that is a wide range. As the mother of a 22-year-old, 19-year-old, and 18-year-old, I am front and center with the moments of entitlement and level of work that feels lower than what it feels like I was doing at those ages. And I think that's probably part of every parent's view, no matter what generation you live in. But it's been great for me to see in the workplace how things are shifting. You know, we have a reverse mentoring program at Microsoft in our US team, where I can learn from somebody who is, you know, very early in career and who is seeing Microsoft from a fresh lens. I think the adoption of technology and the pace of some things can be much faster. The younger the group tends to be, and yet the knowledge, context setting, things that need to be considered for decisions and so forth is something where some more experience can often be at play. And so I find getting teams together that are really a mix of both types of experience and then also length of experience really can produce something great. And I feel like the younger generations will also keep those of us who've been here for a while on our toes, as we should have to be.
Yeah.
Eddie, let's go to you.
I love it, actually. I love that we have such a broad group of people in the workspace together, because for me, I learn from everybody, right? I think some of the younger generations born with technology in their hands from day one, they pick up things really quickly, and it's very intuitive for them. And sometimes it takes me a while to pick up on it, but I'm like, oh, that's great. Why aren't we doing that? And they have that mindset. And at the same time, there's a different kind of work ethic, maybe mindset that an older generation brings. And I think merging those folks together it can produce some really wonderful results. And the only other thing I will say about this is, for those that are in the workplace now, and I will say this specifically, well, for everybody, because we all have to be allies, but for like Ashley, for Eve, for Damarie, for Jennifer, for Ellie, for all those that are on this panel right now, and for Bria and all of you, we've got to start getting in front of kids and the younger generation. We've got to start showing them that we have wonderful business leaders, bright people in this industry, so they can think of STEM as an opportunity for them, so they can see that they have a career here, and so they don't self-select themselves, out of this opportunity. And by seeing you as leaders in an array of positions and things like that, I think that's very powerful, and we need to get that message out more often.
Cool. Damarie?
Here. I have a 11th grader daughter. She is one of the halves, right? She's a Microsoft baby. She was born when I worked there, and has grown up hearing everything about technology. You talk to her friends, her friend group, as she calls them, nobody really has any thoughts around careers that might be in technology. She's one of a couple of young ladies that are in their STEM program at the school, and she's constantly trying to recruit others, but it's not considered cool just yet in her generation. So one of the things I'd like to see over time with Women in Cloud is, can we do some additional outreach programs and maybe, adopt schools where we're taking the united front of the 2,000 people that are part of this organization and doing reach out when kids are young and they're more influenceable than they are, going on. Because even though they have one of those devices in their hands at birth, they don't necessarily know how that leads to a job or a career, because to them, it's what they do every day.
Ashley?
Yeah, I'll just add one note, especially about the multi-generational workforce, and things to keep in mind is communication is key, and understanding the way that one generation hears a task or a given responsibility that's going to be accepted many different ways depending on what your work experience and your background look like. So I know multi-generational communication and understanding and allowing people to maybe raise their hand or ask more questions or really dive deeper, get uncomfortable with understanding what it is that's being maybe asked from a boss, or having the conversations to what would lead to covering in some situations where you're not giving your true and authentic self, and allow and encourage those types of conversations to happen between the generations, so they kind of come and narrow into one given like work stream that can be collaborative together. But I echo where we're going in regards to STEM, and really starting as young as possible, because that's going to be the future of where we funnel things going forward.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's okay. So that's it for our panel session. Thank you, everybody, very much. We're going to transition over to Ellie here in a moment. But for everybody that's going to follow us into the lounge here in a little bit, please do look for each of us there, and come to us, ask us questions about cloud opportunities, and what does a potential employer look for. And as well, every one of us here has made a personal commitment in the context of allyship. So look for us there, look for us on LinkedIn, and please connect and keep the conversation going. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to our wonderful panel. So many great tips. Agree with so much of it. The chat was on fire. I encourage you guys to go back in and take a look at all the comments there. And so with that, I'd love to welcome Danielle Michellini from Google to give us a few brief remarks.
Thank you, Ellie, and hello, everyone. Welcome to the Google Cloud Career Lounge. Hope y'all are enjoying your day so far. As Ellie said, my name is Danielle Michellini, and I have been a cloud recruiter at Google for about 3 years. And I currently hire for cloud engineers within our professional services organization who help customers make the move to Google Cloud Platform. Honestly, I could probably spend hours talking about what's happening within Google Cloud and cloud in general, but since I'm sure you'd rather meet our recruiters and talk to some of the advisors and then more about the individual roles, I'll keep it brief. So I'll highlight some of the groups and orgs we hire into and that our recruiters can speak on today. We have open roles across many teams, both on the pre-sales and post-sales side. On pre-sales, we hire for field sales representatives, customer engineers, solutions architects, and enterprise cloud architects, as well as many, many other profiles from junior to very senior. And on the post-sales side, which is my specialty, we're hiring technical account managers, cloud consultants, cloud engineers, customer success managers, and again, many more. We also hire across specialties like infrastructure, application development, data and machine learning, and also across industries like healthcare, telco, financial services, and that's just to name a few. Keep in mind that this is definitely not an exhaustive list of all the opportunities Google has right now, but we have recruiters who specifically hire for Google Cloud roles at the tables in the middle of this floor who can elaborate on any of the areas of interest that you have. So please make sure you join any of those tables and chat with us. We are here to answer any of your questions about open roles, interviewing, any other questions that you have about hiring at Google Cloud, and also life at Google. Also, if you are interested in seeing a full list of available roles in cloud, please check out careers.google.com/cloud, and I'll make sure that gets dropped in the chat so you don't have to remember that. And if you'd like to stay in touch with Google and hear more about future events and career opportunities, you can also fill out our form at goo.gle/WIC form, and I'll make sure that gets dropped in the chat as well. And one more thing I'd like to call out is that on top of amazing career opportunities, Google also has some fantastic resource groups for employees that span all types of interests. And one that is near and dear to me is our Women at Google group that I'm repping today. I think these types of groups are so important to help foster a sense of community, especially in today's world where, as they said before, many of us are working remotely. We're not able to see our colleagues face to face. There's some that we've never met before, and really we're just communicating screen to screen. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for joining this amazing, inspiring event. Thank you to all the organizers for putting this together and the speakers today for sharing their journeys and insights. We do really look forward to meeting all of you attendees in the Career Lounge, and even more so, look forward to helping you find careers here at Google and within the cloud. We'll be here through the event, we'll be here through the break, so please come by and chat. And with that, I'll just say thank you and turn it back over.
Thank you, Danielle. I was just thinking about when I first heard about Google as a search thing, it was from my friend. I was like, oh, that's a fun word to say. And look at where you all are now. All right, so we are rocking and rolling, and here we are already at the closing remarks. So next up is going to be Jennifer Didier. Jennifer, come on back.
Thank you, Ellie. Wow, what a session. First of all, thank you, Bria, for your amazing story. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I love that you're bringing highly talented professionals to the workforce on their schedule. That is just so impactful. I love your call for decision makers to care for your employees and consider flexible, inclusive strategies. I love that you said skills are currency, because you can hire based on skills, not on how many hours they can work. So you're getting the professionals and you're getting the talented professionals to work for you, and to choose your own beautiful path. It's amazing. And then the panel was just amazing. And some things that I took from their discussion was cloud brings the ability to work anywhere. But it's not for everyone. Great example, you need business decision makers to understand the right people for cloud work. So not everybody has that business acumen that understands what it takes to work in the cloud. Rapid changes, it's a very, very dynamic environment, so you need to adapt. Cloud is 24/7. Organizations need to pave the way with good policies, because these back-to-back meetings and video fatigue, it's really, really tough. Be professional, get up and get dressed every morning like you're going into the office, and present yourself and show up the way you want to be perceived. So it's very, very important to do that. Be authentic, be empathetic. I love the team building, because as Eve said, it's so important to build those teams, understand about their kids, understand what keeps them up at night, how can we help? So have empathy for your employees and for each other. Build multi-generation teams so you can learn from everyone. I love that as well. And then focusing on younger generations, absolutely, that's our pipeline for the future. We need to be role models for them. So amazing, amazing discussions. I was just so engaged and so glued. So thank you to the panel. Thank you to Bria. It was just amazing. And now we're going to move into the lounge, and some rules of engagement are on the screen, so you can see that. So be brave, ask the tough questions, and ask the dumb questions. There's never a dumb question, so you need to ask it. Be yourself. You're the only you we have, so be yourself. Let everybody have a turn. Let everybody have a voice. So really excited for the lounge session as well, where you can network and understand more about the jobs that are available. Next slide. And a big thank you to our sponsors. Amazing, amazing sponsors to make this event a success and even possible. Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Blake, who will kind of give us a lay of the land for the lounge. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, guys, I know you're all excited to get back in the lounge. I'm going to take 30 seconds to describe the layout today to make the most use of your time. We're going to be on 2 floors today. The first floor in the middle section that you see on the screen right here is going to be Google Recruiters. Thanks again to Google for sponsoring this session. If you guys have any questions, want to know how it is to work at Google or the open jobs, first floor, middle section. On the left side right here, you're going to be seeing Meet the Speaker tables. And these Meet the Speaker tables are everyone that came and spoke today. They're going to have their own table. If you want to come say hi to them, ask them any questions, go see them there. You can't see it on my screen now, but in this grassy area on the right side, we're going to have some amazing career coaches that can help you with any kind of career question you have, or ICF coaches that can help you with personal development and anything under the sun. They're also doing 30-minute sessions later this week during the summit. So go talk to them and get some more insight. And then on the second floor, we're going to have 20 amazing companies that are going to be there recruiting, talking to you about what it's like to work at their company. Companies like Accenture and Hitachi Solutions and Lions and Tigers will be there as well. So please go check them out. I'm going to get off the stage. You're going to go back into the floor plan. Make sure if you want to go to any table, double click. And to get to the second floor, on the right-hand side, sorry, the left-hand side of your screen, there's an elevator. Just click number 2. Also, if you have any questions beyond that, go to the concierge table. And also check out our tech bar, beautiful.ai. We'll be showing some really amazing technology. That's it. Good luck, everyone.